We're going to have a listen now to a bit of Donald Trump, I'm afraid, because he has been speaking out about North Korea. And we're going to go, I think this is an NBC report about what he's been saying about North Korea.
The alarming warning tonight from a U.S. official briefed on the Defense Intelligence Agency assessment, telling NBC News Kim Jong-un has now constructed a miniature nuclear warhead small enough to fit inside one of its new long-range missiles, a missile that could reach the U.S. mainland. A major line crossed. The dictator has before shown off what he claims to be a miniaturized nuclear weapon. Now he may have built one.
The problem is he's beginning to perfect all of the elements of the ability to deliver a nuclear device to the homeland.
The speed of the regime's nuclear progress is stunning. U.S. intelligence thought it would take years to get this far. But just 11 days ago, North Korea launched a missile test that could reach all the way to Chicago.
The underestimation of the pace of this program, it represents a real blind spot as well as a danger for the United States.
There are still big hurdles for North Korea, crafting a warhead that can survive re-entry into the atmosphere and testing its accuracy to hit a target.
Ignition.
While this is just one intelligence assessment, the fear is North Korea is on track to solve the technical challenges sooner rather than later.
The North Koreans, if they proceed on their nuclear program, will figure out how to miniaturize the nuclear device, which they have shown that they know how to detonate, miniaturize it and put it on top of an ICBM.
Now, that was really notable, Martin, for that report, for starting off by saying on NBC the North Koreans have miniaturised their nuclear weapons, blah, 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 big announcement. And then by the end of the report, they're saying, well, they might be doing it sometime in the future.
Yes, I mean, there's an awful lot of disinformation and hysteria going on. I mean, it's pretty clear that the North Koreans have developed viable nuclear weapons, although whether they've developed ballistic missiles that can deliver them to the US is debatable. They can probably deliver them to Japan, which is much nearer, and Japan, of course, is the traditional enemy of Korea. They were the occupying power in Korea from 1905
so let's
to
just
1945.
Have a listen now to what Donald Trump actually said.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
Well, fascinating comments from Trump, but even more fascinating is what the people who live on Guam, 100,000 of them, think about all this, which we've heard hardly anything of. Well done, BBC, for yesterday getting a Chimaros doctor, he's Michael Bevacqua, from the University of Guam, on to talk about what they make of this latest saber-rattling.
For the past few years, there has been regular threats made by North Korea as they've been testing their missiles. Frequently, they'll mention that they can target Guam, that they could hit Guam. This was sort of the most specific and pronounced threat to the island. But what really sort of pushed it to a new level of anxiety here was Donald Trump's response, is his aggressive rhetoric. Usually we get that just from the North Korean side, and the U.S. response is much more measured. And so that's really what made things a little bit more anxiety-ridden today, was just the fact that on both sides of us, we had these people using very aggressive language, pointing weapons at each other. And the people of Guam, we just could not help but feel kind of caught in the middle of this war of words, which could easily become a war involving real weapons. Guam is a beautiful island. It's only about 212 square miles. Imagine that 1/3 of that is U.S. military facilities with bombers and fighters landing all the time, miles and miles of military fencing, aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines visiting regularly. And so Guam lives a very militarized existence, which is why, these sorts of threats are common. Just last year, the Chinese government announced that they had developed a missile which they named in honor of Guam. It was called the Guam Killer, because now they said that they could reliably target Guam with their missiles. And so this is the kind of reality for us. The United States itself has called us the tip of their spear.
The tip of their spear. This is not the most helpful language, but Martin, this is seems as if this is another potential conflict zone. We were talking about the start of World War III, another little plank that's spinning. But the main problem with surely with Korea is that it doesn't seem like the American government, or certainly Donald Trump, cares any more about a North Korean life than he does about a South Korean life.
Well, I mean, the rhetoric is way, way out of line. I mean, Trump's put himself in an impossible position where he's basically threatened to nuke North Korea or to carry out an attack on them, which is exactly will lead to the nuclear war that everybody claims they don't want. And the fact of the matter is, if a state has nuclear weapons, just as Pakistan developed nuclear weapons in the 1990s, the Israelis developed them in the 1980s and 1970s, neither of them are supposed to have them, but once they've got them, then there's not a lot you can do.
Finally, a bit of I hadn't heard this on the mainstream news at all. This is from the Donetsk People's Republic's news service. Great look. I'll put a link to that on our show page. The United States has urged its citizens to leave North Korea before the 1st of September.
Well, that's because they're potentially planning. McMaster has said we could go to war, we could have a preemptive war on North Korea. Or as somebody else pointed out, you can't preempt something that's already happened. You can't have a preemptive war to stop nuclear weapons being developed by the North Koreans. They've already got them. And at that point, you just have to back off. You can't force them to give up nuclear weapons. From their point of view, it's absolutely logical. It's the reason that Britain claims to have nuclear weapons. We're not going to use them. We're just going to use them if someone uses them on us.
We haven't got time for Jim Mars, unfortunately. Maybe we can do that next week, but we can hear something from him anyway about him on Tuesday's Dialect. But there is the potential, of course, everyone really, many people out there talking about the 9/11 attacks as a false flag with some kind of inside job, maybe even a nuclear false flag in North Korea.
Well, something like that may happen. The North Koreans are easy patsies for this, because if somebody, if for example a ship is sunk and they say the North Koreans have sunk the ship, like the Gulf of Tonkin incident which began the Vietnam War, because North Korea has got such bad credibility, it's the sort of thing that people might believe, and then they say, all right, there's a justification to have a war with them. But the fact,
if you wanted a war with North Korea, would you sanction a false flag nuclear attack?
Well, you might if you were the sort of person that wants a war with North Korea. The problem is,
nobody wants a war like this, do they?
Oh, you just don't know, do you? The problem with this, I don't think anybody wants a war on the North Korean side, the South Korean side, and let's not forget that they've got some views about all of this. And of course, they've had military dictatorships in South Korea. They haven't got one at the minute, but in the past they have brutal military dictatorships. And the idea that North Korea are the bad guys and South Korea are the good guys, to some extent true, but to some extent not true.
So it's okay. Nobody really wants a war, do they?
Nobody really wanted the First World War, but one shot by Gavril Princip led to a war, and especially when you've got people shouting their mouths off like Trump and the North Korean leadership, the possibility of a war is definitely there.
People making money out of war, folks. So Putin has stayed well out of the fray, braving the cold waters as he strips down to the waist in Siberia on a fishing holiday. Apparently now he's nipped down to Abkhazia as well, looking at the Black Sea. But the US is building a base in the Black Sea, a new base in Ukraine.
Yes, that's right. I mean, what's interesting this week is that the Chinese and the Russians have supported a sanctions policy in the UN Security Council. It's about time that the Americans started cooperating with others instead of just acting unilaterally.
Amen to that. Okay, so time to sign off for the news. Murdoch News at 7 now. Coming up live on Facebook, Arabian Nights with Mohammed Bakawi. Thanks to our guest in the first hour, Labour councillor for Brislington West, Harriet Bradley. Also to retired GP Charlotte Patterson and former mental health nurse, health policy academic Sue Kilroe from Protect Our NHS, as well as Alan Condon. I'll put links to Alan's campaign as well on our show page at thisweek.org.uk. Thanks also to Old Labour Oxford economist Martin Summers. Our sister show Dialect remembers the life of Texas conspiracy scholar Jim Mars next Tuesday at noon. Catch it online now if you like at dialectradio.co.uk. This show's story links and comment page is thisweek.org.uk. You'll find me on Twitter at Tony Gosling. Here's wishing you a relaxing and enjoyable BCFM weekend. I'll leave you with music from 1996, Shaft Benjamin and Amanda Shaw. Do please join us for the Politics Show at the same time next week. God bless, and don't let the banksters get you down.